Hello, hello, hello. It is the internet's busiest, most bored internet movie nerd. This episode, I'm talking about Circle, the 2015 American independent film directed by Hann, a science fiction psychological horror film. And wow, I just kind of fell upon it on Netflix, and what a great film. I have a lot of things to say about it because I don't think people give it the credit that it sort of deserves. You can totally tell it's inspired by the 1957 drama 12 Angry Men. In the film, 50 people wake up in a darkened room only to find one of them is killed every 2 minutes or when they attempt to leave. When they realize they can control which person is selected to die, they can vote for who's selected to die, or someone's randomly chosen. Blocks emerge based on personal values. And there's 50 people, so in theory you would have 100 minutes, and the film does it in 90, which is really good. So pretty much they played with the killings in the beginning, because I can only assume people were killing people off quicker, and they can cut the 2 minutes shorter when they vote and things like that. And wow, let me just read the production and some of the reception from the Wikipedia article. The script was inspired by 12 Angry Men producer star Nardelli, already a fan of the director's web series The Vault, became involved after they pitched the script to him. Pre-production took 3 years. Nardelli said he was impressed with the script's ability to cover political, social, and psychological issues. In comparing it to The Cube, he said Circle provides more answers and gives a definitive ending. Casting for some roles was broad and others were specific. The intention was always to have a wide cross selection. The writer-director did not intend for any character to be outright villainous, though several espoused intolerant opinions. Hann and Moscone wanted to address topical issues and provide clinically tinged antagonistic presence for the film. Principal photography began in 2014. Blah 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 blah. For the reception, the review on Rotten Tomatoes reported that 60% of critics have given the film a positive review based on 5 reviews with an average rating of 5 out of 10. Down to 4 of The Hollywood Reporter called it the Twilight Zone-y drama that works better than expected. Tony Kaye of City Arts Online wrote that movie engineers suspense expertly in their puzzle box fun is trying to piece together exactly what's going on as each prospective execution barrels forward. Ain't It Cool News wrote that although it's not a fully realized concept, it is thought-provoking and provocative. Valerina Kolikvikava of Queen Anne News wrote, while the film attempts to address social issues are beautifully done, leaving a bit of uncertainty at the end would have made a stronger finale. Okay, so my what's to say about it is, one, it's almost, it is very much like 12 Angry Men, and it takes the same energy that 12 Angry Men produced. It's like these 12 men of all backgrounds are deciding the fate of a young boy. And it's this energy of their opposing opinions, their morals, their ethics, their ideologies, things like that, their backgrounds, that that lead the story forward and how they go upon solving the issue. And this is exact same energy. There's 50 people instead of every race: white, black, Mexican, Asian, Indian, Muslim. Like I can't you can't name. There's just so many. And there's even a child and a pregnant woman. There's couples. There's people who've had affairs. So it takes the energy of 12 Angry Men and times it by 50 basically, or by 5. And it's amazing because they I think the problem with the reporters is they want this fully fleshed out story with a completed story arc, completed character arcs, and things like that, when this isn't what the film's attempting to provide. Like the Hollywood Reporter, when they said it's a Twilight Zone drama, Like I imagine they expect this movie to be a TV movie, and that's not really what it is. For me, it's definitely it's attempting to say something, and it's using the medium of film, not even film, of cinema to do that. And the greatest part is the way he uses archetypes, and that all 50 people you've probably met in your life at some point, or for whatever reason, if you live in a decently populated area, you've met one of these people. I would say at least more than half of these people. And I would I would say it's universal. In all countries, you've probably seen the rich guy, the tattooed guy, the young guy, the old guy, the pregnant woman, the soldier, the cancer survivor, the cop. You know what I mean? You've seen all these people. Um, and so I think it's I like the idea that he's attempting to void character arcs in background and things like that for archetypes that are universal in human nature, not even in the human condition, that each person who watches this can relate to it. I would say that people in more westernized countries could relate to it a lot more, because it talks about more of American politics and things like that. Like I know there's a lot of slavery all over the world and a lot of racism all over the world. But usually in America, it's about white versus blacks. And you could tell that's being in reference to because then the blacks with the cops and things like that. Although that's a big issue worldwide, it's the main part of our politics in the United States. Give me 1 second. But even aside from that, you can tell people's morals and like the religious people and things like that. Like how, for example, the biggest point in the film is whether everyone is equal or whether some people are more equal than others. And it basically it sounds so funny because it's the idea of Animal Farm. And so there's a child and a lady who's pregnant. And so everyone's arguing whether or not everyone should have a chance. Because if they kill the young person, then they can vote potentially to have the pregnant woman, her child, and someone else be saved. Because if they vote for each other and they don't vote, they don't know what's going to happen at the very end. And they can only suspect they're going to keep both of them or all three of them alive. But other people are arguing that you could do that with the child and the mom, but they're like, she's not smart enough, and it's just all these other things. So then they start to say, let's kill the young girl, and then we'll have the mom's more competent with the child, and that she can keep her alive, and things like that. And I'm just kind of ranting, but what I'm trying to get out for the film is that it had to get rid of traditional narrative, and that's what people don't like. It had to use the maximum extensions of what cinema can provide, and it's almost like energy. I like to call it energy because it uses Jung and Carl Jung's archetype, like theory of archetypes. It uses the idea of archetypes and sort of the sound and the lighting and the clothing and the mise en scène and the things on set and things like that. That's what really made up the energy. It used those to empower the film more than narrative. It just seems that narrative has been the dominant figure for film because it's more digestible. And like something like this that isn't that popular, it was made on a budget. It doesn't even show the budget. So like a film like this, it just I like it because it's basically using the most cinematic techniques it can, and is being able to hold itself up compared to narrative films. It's using the maximum idea of cinema, something that's personal to you, that speaks to a lot of people, and is willing to forego traditional narrative, because this isn't literature or theater. It forgoes traditional. There's people who act and who are very well at portraying those roles, but then there's some people who don't say things at all. So there's not even traditional acting and theatrical things like that. Um, it's and one of them said, "Ain't Cool News" wrote that although it's not a fully realized concept, I thought it was a fully realized concept. I thought the entirety of the situation was laid out in front of you. I think they said they wanted this because at the very end, they the good guys win, and the child and the pregnant woman survive, and the boy who proposed the idea of saving the child and the woman, the pregnant woman, is left alive with them, and the the boy and the girl decide to both kill themselves to save the woman and the child, because you're technically saving two people. And so the girl is about to step forward, and at the last second, the boy kills the wife, the pregnant woman, sorry, and he's left alone. Then you find out that the baby's still alive. So then the boy votes to kill the baby, and he escapes. And then he ends up in L.A. in the streets randomly with people, and they're looking at an alien spacecraft in the sky, and that's how the film ends. So I thought it was a fully realized concept. The idea is that these aliens don't think these humans are really that good, or even then they want to teach them a lesson, so they put 50 of them randomly in a room, and they say, okay, duke it out, and whoever's basically the smartest one gets to live. And I think those are all the people who are in the streets, because there's hundreds of alien things, so it's like they're way smarter than humans. What I'm saying is that's a fully realized concept for me. I don't know what else you need for that to come into fruition. Like maybe something in the beginning to explain it more, or something at the end. But yeah, it's because I think for me that it's just because they think they lack narrative and character arcs and things like that, that these normal reporters, critics, whatever you want to call them, favor. Some of my favorite parts is seeing people's ideologies pushed to an extreme, because there's a man in there who manages to make it pretty far. You can tell he's sort of not necessarily classist, but like hierarchical. Like he sees the hierarchies, and he's attempting to put everything in a hierarchy, basically. At one point, he goes, "Okay, who has children?" He's like, "Well, I have 7 children." And it's like, "Oh, so you want to survive because you have 7 children?" There's another black man who says, "Well, it's only fair if we even out to look at how many white people there are." And he's like, "This isn't fair." Then everyone sees he's kind of being racist towards white people, and they all vote to him, but then they split the vote with someone else. And at the last moment, the young black man reaches to an older black man and says, like, "Come on, brother, like, why wouldn't you, why wouldn't you be with me?" And it's like, oh, it's not even like he doesn't see them all as equal anymore. He just sees it's like black versus white. And then there's another time where they start to vote for volunteers, and the 16-year-old boy decides to go, and he says he doesn't want to kill anyone, and so he votes to kill himself so he can have the other ones can survive, because he can't bear just doing that. And he's a very innocent kid, you can see that, and you could tell just by his archetype that he probably played video games, hung out with his friends. He's 16 years old. He was probably in the middle of high school. He probably got his first girlfriend. Like he's barely learning things, and this is after the racist things have passed. A older black gentleman who you could tell was probably, this seems kind of racist, but I see him as opening doors for people, or even being a law in law. He was just wearing a suit, and he was an older black man. He looked very aged, and but very clean and very clean cut. And he's like, "No, son, I'm gonna sacrifice. Like, I'll do it." And so he turns around. He like straightens his back, makes sure his shirt's flat. You mean relax? He buttons up his jacket, and he walks off. And just these little things, like in a traditional film, you'd have to build up those two characters. You'd have to build up the boy, and you have to build up what he's gone through, and then build up this man and why he'd be willing to sacrifice that for a boy. But you could just tell, just by the energy of the room, that this man has gone through so much. And that it doesn't matter or what's his background or the things he's gone through. There's something in him that we know it's in him. Not that can't let that boy die. And so he sacrifices himself. And it's almost like I put my own story into it. Like I can only imagine that his mother spoke to him. And she's like, "You can't do that to this boy." She's like, "You're my son, blah blah blah. Do more." I could just see that, and it's not even, and it's with everyone. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's almost true cinema. It's the closest to true cinema that you can get. And I think it's amazing. I don't know why this film isn't talked about more, or at least, or like, yeah, it's on Netflix. There's a 2017 Circle film with, yeah, this is not the film with Emma Watson and Tom Hanks, if you're looking for that. This is the independent American film called Circle that came out 2 years prior. Yeah, I did really like that because, and I'm gonna say it constantly over and over, there's a lot of things that I really like that people don't pay attention to. The time, it was a very true, it was almost true to the time. If it was closer to it was mid 90 minutes or late 90 minutes, then it would have been closer to the time, but it's 87 minutes, so it's on the high 80s, low 90s. So that means they played with time a little bit. If every 2 minutes someone dies, we know that people killed them off earlier, but okay, yeah, I guess that's the only thing that explains this, is that some of them killed them off earlier. But the time was perfect. It was very close. It was very true to it. It was almost 100 minutes. And that's what they said. There's 50 people, 2 minutes, people die. What else? What else was this? Oh, and the idea that this can inspire anyone. I'm very inspired by this film. One of my favorite films is 12 Angry Men. And this is like an American, like extension, modern day extension of that. I think it's amazing. It teaches people, one, because this was meticulously, in pre-production. They had to go through they storyboarded the entire thing of all, even though it's just a circle, and you could just point to people who are talking. They storyboarded the entire thing, and I think that says a lot. It says a lot because you don't need a lot. You don't need a lot to make a really good story, especially if you're just starting out. You'd have a strong concept and a lot of dedication. And that's what I sort of see, is dedication in the writing, dedication to the energy, dedication to the pre-production. You can see it in the film. I think that's what ultimately comes out of all of this. When you're looking at it as like a film student, or a student of cinema who's attempting to make films, it's just this energy that anyone could do this with just enough thought. And it speaks to a lot of things. And I just really like that. I think that's really it. Is that it avoided traditional narrative and character arcs to bring us an energy that only cinema could provide. You can explain this in a book or maybe a poem or a short story or whatever, or even a song, but it's not the same. It's sort of the crescendo of all of the elements. I'm trying to think what else I'd say about it. I guess that's it. I want to keep it short, so this is really great. So this episode we talked about the 2015 American science fiction psychological horror film Circle, directed by Aaron Hann and Mario Mosconi. The film was great. If I were to rate it, I could rate it. I could give it a 9. This is it. This is the first 9, boys. Stamp it. But this is a 9 for me. A film like this is great and definitely in the top 100. That's what I'm gonna say. I think for the 9 is the perfect time. The idea that it got rid of traditional narrative and character arcs to bring something else better. The idea that it's closer to what a real cinematic movie is compared to what people think movies are. The concept, I think it's a not fully realized concept, but a fully fleshed out concept. We know beginning and the end what sort of it, especially by the end, we sort of know, or we can conclude. 5, the way that they got that energy, just the way I was sucked in the entire time. I watch a lot of movies and sometimes I have to take a break. Like halfway through, I'll just watch it at the end of the day or something and just think about the first half of the movie. This one I couldn't look away. It was awesome. It was great. And yeah, that's it. And just the archetypes and things like that. That's what really gave it a 9 for me. Yeah, that's it. So go on Netflix, type in CIRCL Circle by Aaron Hann. It's a great movie. Should be on every film student's watch list. It's almost like if I was to teach a class, I would show them 12 Angry Men, and the very next day I'd show them this film, so they can see how a 1957 drama could be put in modern day, how they can translate it. You can pull inspiration from almost anything. It's awesome. With that being said, go watch Circle on Netflix. This is Caleb Krebs, internet's busiest internet nerd. See you guys on the flip side. Peace.